Beyond Reason Radio.
Headline for you right now to start out the show. Minneapolis City Council alarmed by surge in crime months after voting to defund the police. Why are they alarmed is the question. I mean, that's what you have to start out with, but here's the article. Minneapolis City Council members who just 2 months ago moved to eliminate the police department sounded the alarm during a Wednesday meeting about a surge in crime seen by their constituents. Now, I could take credit for predicting this would happen, but this was not difficult to predict. It was just common sense. Council members pressed Police Chief Madaria Arradondo about the uptick in crimes that included daylight carjackings, robberies, assaults, shootings, and street racing. Residents are asking, where are the police? Why do you care? I mean, that was originally my response. Why do you care where the police are? You don't like them. You want less of them. Now you want them? I mean, we knew this was going to happen, but I didn't know if it was going to happen 2 weeks after all this started. But
wait, we said what? We don't want them? No, that was wrong. We need them now.
You know what it is, though? They honestly believe, well, some of them do. Others are actually trying to destroy the country, which is why they wanted to defund the police. But they honestly believe that if we defund the police and put in a bunch of social workers and add money to a bunch of government programs, that we're just going to create this nice socialist utopia where we don't need police officers. Because police have too much on their back. So we're just helping the police. That I've actually kind of seen some on the left make that reference that this is actually kind of helping the police by defunding them.
Helping the police?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, seriously. I mean, that's the argument.
They want this. It's
what's good for the officers.
Sure.
Even though police chiefs are resigning because they're like, no, this is not what's good for the officers. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I am your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. We are on till 8 p.m. tonight here on News Radio WFLA Orlando. We are also on Facebook Live as well.
And Twitch and Periscope.
Yeah.
And just about every platform except the TV in the bathroom, which everybody now has. So.
Well, of course, it's a necessity. But yeah, so Melissa Fox, you're here producing, is back today. She's kind of the one who set all this up, and she's doing a great job. So if you want to like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page, you can find the video right there. Do we share it on the WFLA page as well? Should we do that?
Yeah, I'll do that right now.
Yeah, well, let's do that. So we'll share it on the WFLA. I'll share it on my personal page. Haven't done Facebook Live in a while because the usual Facebook Live camera was in the old studio, and we're still in the storage closet here in the iHeartMedia building.
Yeah, but I know a lot of the ladies out there, and unfortunately, ladies, he's taken.
Yes, I'm married.
Okay, but now they're going to get a better shot of what you actually look like.
I remembered to wear the ring.
Yeah, I heard you washed up this morning and took it off and forgot to bring it and felt naked all day.
Like, seriously, I'm not making this up. This is going to be, all the girls are going to go, "Aw." But I was in the studio this morning for the morning show, and I seriously looked at my hand, and it wasn't, I was like, my hand, and it feels weird. And I was like, oh, and at first I was like, did I lose it? Where is it? I don't want to lose it. But so I texted Steffi, and I was like, is it on my dresser? And she said, yep, it's right there.
And the live chat is open as well. So if you want to participate on the social media, please feel free to do so. Share if you care.
Yeah, awesome. So, and by the way, you can follow me on Twitter at Michael Yaffee. A bunch of response to some tweets I've been tweeting out lately where basically I put out the article where Kamala Harris called it the Harris administration. And I said, I literally thought that was a Babylon Bee article when I first saw. I mean, I'm like the Babylon, and then Biden did it later, and I'm like, the Babylon Bee is running the Biden campaign. They have to be so.
That or they're going to file for bankruptcy. There's nothing we can make fun of that they're not doing.
But I got a bunch of retweets on that and everything. So that was very interesting. Melissa, how are you before we get started on the topic?
Oh, I'm doing well. I've been fed and I've rested. So thanks for asking.
You're like a cat, you know. You just like all you want is some sleep and you want your food. And do you want some catnip?
Had that. I'm good.
People actually believe that. So
yeah, they do.
The reason why I wanted to bring up the whole Minneapolis thing and start with that story is because I always like to talk about, and beyond reason, what's coming next. We talk current events, of course. The theme of the show is faith, culture, and politics, and that's what we talk about. But I also like to look into the future. I also like to talk about the big picture. I also like to talk about what's coming up next. So when we look at the riots going on in the country, and I know the Democrats don't want to talk about it. They want to talk about climate change. They want to talk about coronavirus because they're big on their national strategy, which is just the federal government taking more control. And I'm going to tell you why the federal government taking more control of wildfire prevention is probably not a good idea because they're kind of responsible for a lot of it. So we'll get into that later. But the riots are a big deal because what's going to start happening, I mentioned on an earlier show that cops, they're going to start leaving. They're going to start leaving these cities and they're going to move to the suburbs. Why would they stay in a city where the chances are they're going to see a lot of violent crime? They're going to be afraid to do anything about it because if they do something about it, there'll be riots in the street. And so they're going to find a job in a quiet suburb. Why would they stay in a city? And unfortunately, if they're white, they're probably going to find an area that's mostly white. Not because they're racist, but because we're at a point where they're afraid if they try to arrest a black man or a black woman and something goes wrong, that they're going to be called a racist. So they're going to go to an area to try to limit the possibility of that happening. And I talked about why that's really sad because that means a lot of these inner cities and a lot of these minority communities that really need the cops there because it's helped those communities prosper in recent years, they're going to be without good cops. The bad cops will stay. The good cops will leave because it's what's best for their family. But I started thinking about this and I was like, why would I stop at just police? Why would I just think it's only the police that are going to leave the cities? The fact is, lots of people who have the ability to leave, they're going to leave these cities.
Haven't we seen this before? Mass exodus? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I mean, we've had mass migrations in the past, but yeah. But that was actually changing. In the past 20 years, crime rates were plummeting in the inner cities. We saw urban renewals in all the big cities across the country, and a lot of that had to do with the crime bill that was passed in Congress in the 90s. But it also had to do with what they call broken window policing, where they enforce the small laws. Like if someone breaks a window, they enforce that law, they arrest that person, and it sends a message that don't break the law because there will be consequences. I'm like shaking the table, which is shaking the camera. I still have to get used to being on camera here.
It's kind of cool, though, watching this. He's emphatic. I'm waiting for him to pound the table and everything to just go all over the room.
So, but there was urban renewal. We all what's happening in all these cities across the country. You've seen the renewal in the city. You've seen how economic development has happened in the cities. That's over. Those days are over. Why would that continue? The businesses are going to close down. The good business owners.
They're already shuttered.
Yeah, they're already shuttered. The good business owners, they're going to leave. So you're going to have good cops leave. You're also going to have business owners leave. You're going to have families leave. And in fact, there's already evidence that this is happening. According to the New York Times, so can't say it's some right-wing outlet, suburban home sales are booming as people move out of New York City. So a lot of people used to want to live in the city. It was a cool place to live, and it was a revival, especially after Giuliani. They were going into Manhattan. It was a nice area. I visited New York a couple of years ago. I was actually pretty impressed with how nice Manhattan was. That's over. We've seen an increase in crime. Plus the pandemic was already starting this, but the increase in crime and the riots is going to continue this on even more. And the riots and the crime are only going to get worse because the police are afraid to do their jobs. So people are leaving to the suburbs. The evidence is there.
Can they just not come to Florida?
Oh, they're all coming to Florida.
Or Texas?
Everyone's coming to Florida. I mean, they're all moving south. That was already happening.
True. But now, just don't do it. Just
sorry.
Stay.
Nope, they're
West
all...
Virginia's nice.
West Virginia's nice. Yeah, I hear there's some other states out there.
Lots of them.
I mean, we're seeing this. So you're going to have the cops leave. You're going to have people leave. But what else is going to happen is more people are going to buy guns. Now, in the past few years, especially under the Obama administration, gun sales actually went up because they were so afraid the Obama administration and Democrats were going to take away the right to bear arms, which is a totally legitimate fear. But you're having a lot of families out there, a lot of middle-class families who never even thought about owning a gun to protect their families. They didn't really need it. All of a sudden, they're saying, we're going to have to do this. We have to protect our families, and we're not sure if the police are going to be there because there's such a movement in this country to bash police. You know, I talked about in the last show how we need to take back the culture. One way in which we're losing the culture war, and it's happening very, very quickly, is it used to be the thing in our popular culture to praise law enforcement. I mean, all of the crime shows out there were to make law enforcement look good. We see it all over the place. Now, all of a sudden, there's going to be a movement to bash law enforcement, and that's going to continue. So they're afraid. If law enforcement isn't there, a social worker's not going to protect my home. How am I going to protect my home? Well, it's going to be with a gun. What gave me an idea to talk about this is William McGurn of the Wall Street Journal. He works for the Wall Street Journal editorial board. He put out an opinion piece on the Wall Street Journal saying, on Monday, it turned official. The police issued me a gun permit. He says, by no means did I think I'd be right here, not as a result of me being anti-gun. He says, my dad was an FBI agent. My siblings and I grew up with weapons. He said, but he never really thought that it wasn't something he thought he needed. He was just a normal middle-class guy, conservative, but he never thought, I would really need a gun to protect my family. He said, even in suburbia, many are not assured our authorities would or may maintain us protected. In a small suburb like his, what would occur if even 100 to 200 folks bent on violence had been, going in there? Would the small police be able to do anything about it? So you have a small police force, and all of a sudden you have these riots, and eventually they're going to want to go to the suburbs to make their point. Are the police even going to be able to protect them, and are they going to want to protect them in some of these suburbs? And he's afraid of this.
Those are all valid questions, Michael. What will we do? I come from small town America.
Where?
Yeah, Nantucket, Massachusetts, a little island out in the Atlantic Ocean. And, there's maybe 10 cops on the force, but in the summer, there's 50,000 people. That's quite a ratio of, and if it was to come to that where there was a demonstration or a riot or things got out of hand, I think they'd all just try to hightail and run because I don't believe there's enough police to take care of that kind of a situation. So I can only wonder what it would be like in one of the bigger cities.
Yeah. So people are fleeing the cities. The good cops are fleeing the cities. And those people are also buying guns because they don't trust that they're going to be protected. And what's funny is all this is completely unnecessary. There's no reason to even be doing any of this in the big picture because it's common sense. Support the law enforcement. Don't fight with the cops if they stop you and arrest you. Don't try to assault the officer or even kill the officer. And support our law enforcement. And there would be no need for this. And if there are riots, fight them with overwhelming force. So if there is a riot in a city, the best way to stop it is with overwhelming force. Actually, that's what happened in what was the recent riot in Pennsylvania?
Lancaster.
Yeah, Lancaster. They haven't had as many riots because the police went in there with overwhelming force and arrested people.
Yeah, but the $1 million bail thing for peaceful protesting.
Yeah, I know you're against, but it wasn't peaceful. That's the issue.
Well,
but that's a whole other issue. But the fact is the cops went in there in the beginning and there haven't been any riots since. It's the only way you can stop it. It's all completely unnecessary. It actually makes me sad. All of this really makes me sad because it seems unnecessary. Because in the past 20 years, we've lived, other than the culture continuing to go down the tube, we have lived in a great country where we've seen crime rate plummet, where we've seen economic renewal in a lot of our cities, where minorities are actually entering the middle class and the upper middle class and numbers never seen before in this country. We should all be praising where this country was going, and now we're headed in the opposite direction because of leftist lies. So what's going to be the next leftist lie? It's not going to stop here because eventually they're not going to be able to ignore the crime going up. They're not going to be able to do it. That doesn't mean they're going to do what's necessary to stop it. They're going to try to do something else. And we'll talk about that next and much more. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime.
My trip to Israel.
Oh, you are? Hey, guys. Thanks you for listening to Beyond Reason. I'm going to get up in a minute because I have my Diet Pepsi over there. I just want to take a sip.
he's saying that just for the engineer's benefit, I'm for sure.
But yeah, I appreciate you. If you like the show, share it with your friends. And thanks to Melissa for actually setting all this up. So if I look... I can't decide if I'm supposed to look at you at the camera or if I should look at her. So I'm just doing it all. I'm just doing it all. You know, I don't know why you would want to look at me on TV, you know, on a video, but other than my wife, she might like this.
I don't even think she's watching.
I don't think so either.
We got a few people hanging up. Hey guys, an empty chair is never good to look at. All right, so we only actually have a minute. Thanks for joining us. I'm just hanging out. Oh, he's back in the chair. Okay, it's Melissa signing back off. And there he is. Dynamite. A quick question. You don't think that people are buying guns because they're scared the Second Amendment's going to be revoked or something?
I can't hear it at all when I have my headphones on. What?
Second Amendment, people are worried about it being revoked, therefore buying guns.
I mean, that was part of it in the beginning. Right now, I think it's more about just protecting yourself, honestly. I think it's the crime rates, and they feel like they have to protect themselves, and the best way to do it is to hold a gun.
Stand by, people. Counting down in 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
But your voice of truth in a world of fake news. Beyond Reason Radio continues right now.
Welcome back to the show. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. We're on until 8 p.m. tonight here on News Radio WFLA Orlando. We're also on Facebook Live, Periscope, and pretty much all over social media with the new video that the new producer, Melissa Fox, set up for me. So I appreciate that. We've been talking about the fact of what's coming next when it comes to the problems in our cities, because it's going to continue to be a problem. Not only do you have the economic devastation caused by the coronavirus and all of the shutdowns, and of course a lot of the major cities that are in Democrat states are shut down for way too long, and it's going to be hard for them to come back. But then you have the riots going on, and the riots were overwhelming. And by the way, I keep seeing on social media this claim, Well, 93% of the protests were peaceful. 93%. So that totally kills the narrative.
No, but the 7%.
Well, 7% was over 200 riots. That's a lot of riots in a short amount of time in the United States of America. But okay, I always look at that and I'm like, oh, we're going to play the game of overwhelmingly peaceful. Or we're going to play the game of 93% were peaceful. So do you think the people that post that, the leftists that post that, will say the same thing about the virus?
Wait, it's 93. Wait.
It's like 99% of people survive the virus. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, but
Something
that doesn't
like that?
count. And
No.
Trump. And Trump.
And Trump.
Isn't that usually the response?
Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah, well, Trump.
And Trump.
I mean, I see it on social media with some of my leftist friends, and I want to respond like, oh, we're going to play the numbers game. Okay, well, how about 99% of the people survive the coronavirus? So why are you constantly calling for shutdowns and say all this bad stuff? Now, I agree with you that doesn't mean we shouldn't take it seriously, but I'm just using your point. Or how about we go down this road? How about the fact that the overwhelming majority of incidents with police and minorities in this country are end up peaceful and end up okay?
Wait, not everybody gets shot in the back from running away?
No. In fact, that rarely happens, considering blacks make up 13%.
I think it's like
of the
13,
of the population, which is like, what is that? I can't do the math in my head right now, but
yeah, I'm not good.
I mean, it's like 26. I believe it's like 26 million people. You have 26 million African Americans. I'm pretty sure most of them, when they have encounters with police, are okay and don't get killed.
Yeah,
but
I would hope. There's bad people, there's bad cops, but it's a small percentage, right? Isn't it?
Yeah,
like
it's a
just
small
the amount
percentage.
Of people?
I'm just using their logic.
Just a small percentage of people.
It's just a small. They're saying that we need to completely defund the police or reform police departments. That LeBron James says black people are hunted in this country. Doc Rivers, used to be the coach of the Magic, says black people love America.
That while he was in the back seat of his Lexus and his driver rolled the window down by pushing the button?
He says we love this country, but the country doesn't love us back.
The country doesn't love us back.
When you look at the overwhelming statistics, most times it's peaceful. It's fine. The cops are justified in what they do.
7% of the time. No.
It's actually, in a lot of these other situations, it's lower than 7%. It's more than 93%. So be careful when you're throwing out I feel like people don't even think about these things.
I was thinking, Michael, you say you like to prognosticate, you like to look to the future, what's next. You know what's next, right? The vaccine doesn't work, it's poison, it's got, blah, blah, blah. That's the next left agenda. We've
already started some of that, which is interesting because if Obama was president and he came out with a vaccine before his next election, and Trump came out and said, I don't know if we could trust this vaccine, he would be completely blasted for it.
But would it be Obama's vaccine? Remember it was Obama phone and Obama
totally.
money?
They would totally they'll never give Trump credit for this vaccine, but they would have given Obama.
South, yeah. If it goes sideways, it's all Trump. But if it's a success, well, I don't know.
But I mean, my point is that now you have Democrats skeptical of the vaccine because Trump did it. If it was totally reversed, could you imagine all the things that you would be called if you were skeptical of a vaccine under Obama?
What?
I mean, but we all know hypocrisies in politics. But when you're talking about the riots in the cities, what's really coming up next is once these crime rates continue to go up, and we've already seen some of this kind of hinted out there, they're going to push for gun control. That's going to be their solution.
See, that's what I was getting at before when you said people are leaving cities and grabbing up the guns. And I've heard that actually handguns and such have been running just off the shelves. So I wonder if people are actually not only in fear of not being policed properly, but also worrying about their Second Amendment rights. Can't take it from me if I've already got it.
I totally think that's part of it. But that's what they're going to go after next. So instead of actually dealing with the criminals and punishing the criminals and having a strong criminal justice system that puts them away in jail for a long period of time, which
criminal
helps prevent
arsonist.
to prevent. I know that's just a dumb comment. What Biden said about Trump. Well, we're gonna get into some of that next. But they're gonna blame. They're going to blame the gun. They're not going to blame the criminals. They're going to blame the gun. And because the crime rates are so high, you're going to see a huge push in the next 5 to 10 years, more than we've seen already, for gun control in this country. That is going to be their solution to end crime. Of course, we know it's ridiculous. It doesn't work. It's like their solution of having social workers work with police. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
But that's what's coming. That's what's coming next. So we want to talk about the future. That's what you have to expect. Just letting you know.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'm glad to be of service. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I am your host, Michael Yaffee. We will be right back.
If you like Beyond Reason Radio, well, make sure to show it by liking the Facebook page at facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio. From the Airflow Design.
That's weird. We have a weather right in the middle of nowhere. Just a weather. And then we're coming right back. Yeah, it's just the weather, though. There's no headlines. They don't do traffic. That's weird. And no headlines either, huh? Oh. Hey.
We could put that back in there. Tom Benson used to delete it at the bottom of the
I don't care. I wouldn't put it back in there. More content, less commercials, right? Woo, woo. So, hi, guys. How are you? It's Melissa. One day last week, I found out that Tom Benson, the producer of the show, was moving on, retiring, going to somewhereville in Florida with the rest of his family. So I was like, hey, Micah, I'll come and help you out. I'm doing nothing but sleeping at 7 o'clock at night most nights. So anyway, here I am. And he said, yeah, you're going to bring all that electronic stuff with? No, he didn't. I said, I'll put you on the Facebook and social media properly, the way it should be. And here we are. So there you go. Share if you care. Yep.
So, already coming back? Okay, good.
Conditions apply.
Safe space for conservative thought, not for political correctness. Yaffee is back right now.
Welcome back to the show. This is Beyond Reason Radio. One of the big stories that's been going on recently has been the wildfires that we've seen in California and Oregon and up in that area. Of course, you have the Hurricane Sally, that has hit us on this side of the country, hit the panhandle of Florida, Alabama, and so forth, dumping a ton of rain. And because of these two things going together, there's been a lot of talk, of course, of climate change. Now, forget about the fact that hurricanes are not new.
Wait, what?
It's happened before. Now, they'll mention the fact that there's been a lot of hurricanes in recent years.
No, we had like a whole stretch, like 4 years, where we had nothing dangerous in there, if I recall.
No, it was more than 4 years. Yeah, it was almost a decade where we really didn't have that much. It was 2005 where they had to go in the Greek alphabet, and they're having to do that again.
Well, wasn't that year Pat Robinson said that the gays made Florida hurricane? It's something weird
it was
like
Louisiana.
that. Yeah, there was always something.
Yeah.
God's mad.
But they're blaming the wildfires, of course, on climate change. Now, we can also forget about the fact that it seems like a lot of these wildfires were actually started by arsonists.
Well, except for the gender reveal party, which I think are stupid, by the way.
Gender reveal parties?
Yeah, one of the gender reveal parties is one that kicked off one of the first quadrants of the California.
Yeah, I know.
It's
I heard
a boy.
that.
It's a fire.
Now, I guess there could be an argument that some of the fires are exasperated by climate change. No. But it seems like when you look at a lot of the evidence, and this is what Trump said, and of course he got blasted for it, even though he's exactly right, is it seems like forest management is a real problem.
Someone dropped the ball, or rather the wood, and never leaves and clutter.
Exactly. And I have an interesting study here from the Reason Foundation, where 4 years ago they were talking about this problem because they were having more wildfires back then. They said it's going to continue to get worse, and they all talk about forest management. Now, they admit here in the study that some of it might be done because of climate change, but they're saying, look, there's too much kindling here. There's too much here that is going to be able to burn and cause these problems. It says right here, this is Julian Morris writing in 2016. Said, adding fuel to forest fires. In the past 3 decades, the area burned by wildfires in the U.S. each year has grown dramatically, while the number of fires has remained roughly constant. So the number of wildfires isn't going up very much. It's just they're getting worse, the wildfires.
More spread, less contained. Yeah.
Themselves. Yeah, it says, although likely climate change has played a role, the main reason wildfires have become larger and more devastating is the way the forests have been managed. In particular, the Forest Service's fire suppression policy. After the big burn of 1910, which destroyed 3 million acres and killed 92 people in Washington, Idaho, and Montana. Interesting, there was a big burn in 1910? I didn't know global warming and climate change was such a problem back then.
Yeah, it was horrible. And
Yeah,
in Chicago, Mrs. Murphy and the cow and...
All those SUVs that they were driving around in 1910, just causing all that climate change, which caused that big fire.
Big hole in the ozone back then, yeah.
Yeah, it says the Forest Service initiated a policy of putting out fires rather than letting them burn naturally. It says for decades, suppression appeared to be highly successful. From 1910 to the mid-1950s, the area of national forest burned fell from over 1 million acres to around 200,000 acres and stayed more or less constant until the 1980s. Before the suppression policy was enacted, California likely experienced frequent small fires, largely caused by lightning, which regularly cleared out the understory, creating a diverse, patchy mosaic. Suppression interfered with that process. It's funny how the left, including Joe Biden, they've been having this big push that they're the party of science. You know, Trump doesn't believe in science. We believe in science, and we have to talk about climate change. Well, the suppression of letting some of these fires burn naturally, that's anti-science. Totally goes against the science of what you should be doing here. And yet they've been doing that, and one of the reasons they did that, of course, was environmentalists. I'm sure of it. It says the suppression interfered with that process, resulting in denser strands of trees, reduced diversity, and a buildup of dead wood. During dry years, lightning readily ignites the understory of dead dry wood. The resultant fire then climbs to the crown and is spread by the wind. Under the right conditions, such fires can spread rapidly and can be difficult to stop. From both an ecological and economic perspective, continuing with this suppression policy is lunacy. Yet they've still been doing it. I mean, this is 4 years old and they were still doing it. Yet instead of ending it, the Forest Service has doubled down. Between 1986 and 1995, an average of 3 million acres of U.S. forest burned each year, and the Forest Service spent an average of $311 million per year on suppression. The following decade, 5.5 million acres burned per year, and the Forest Service spent $670 million per year on suppression. Between 2006 and 2015, the numbers continue to grow. 7 million acres burned each year, and the Forest Service spent $1.2 billion a year on suppression. I mean, the evidence goes on and on and on. These are actual facts based on science. Yeah. The numbers of fires, it's not that they're going up, it's just that the fires are going out of control. And one of the reasons they're going out of control was this fire suppression policy, which of course goes against science. Now, you could also argue that it has to do with homes being built in these areas that are prone to fires. And of course, if we actually let the free market work, the insurance rates would kind of take care of that, where it would be high insurance rates if you're in high fire areas, and there would be less incentive to actually build homes in some of those areas.
I just like to blame the Santa Ana winds. I'm just going to say it right there.
The Santa Ana winds? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think you're right. I think it's all...
Thank you.
It's all that fault. But what's interesting about this is a lot of this policy, it's not necessarily California's fault. It's the federal government's fault. I keep hearing from Biden that we need a national strategy to fix all these problems, because if we have a national strategy and we have the federal government involved in all of these things, it will just solve all our problems, right? We'll have this, well, it'll be based on science apparently, and they'll have this strategy, and who cares what the states believe? The federal government will step in and that'll just solve everything, except it doesn't. That's not how this works.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of big government like that.
Yeah, it can actually make things worse, as we've seen here, because a lot of California, for instance, is owned by the federal government, believe it or not.
Whoops.
Yeah. So, but Biden has a solution for all of this, believe it or not. I have a cut there, Melissa. This was Biden this week. Yeah, go on and play the Biden cut that I have there. This was Biden this week with a plan, and of course, it's all about climate change. Here it is.
You're absolutely right. The president made it clear he was going to lift the moratorium on offshore drilling. Most people only focused on focused on the environmental impact of that happening, what that would mean, especially since when we don't need more fossil fuel, what we need is more renewable energy. But I strongly support, I can guarantee you, if I'm president, there will be no offshore drilling. Extend the moratorium. I think it should be basically a permanent moratorium.
So Joe Biden's solution now, I know.
He sounds like he's asleep.
Sleepy Joe was a great name. You know, this is kind of a side note, but I've always said that Donald Trump is brilliant in communication in one respect. He's brilliant at marketing. Not necessarily, he's not a guy who's going to write some kind of deep prose or something like that. But he's the guy in the boardroom when McDonald's is trying to come up with the slogan, and he's the guy who says, I'm loving it. And it ends up being genius, and McDonald's uses it and makes billions of dollars using that solution for years. Yeah, and we all know it. Trump is brilliant at that, at the marketing. It's simple a lot of times, but it's effective. So when he says Sleepy Joe, it's simple, but it's effective. It's the same type of thing. And I'm starting to wonder if Trump is on to something, that Biden's getting some kind of help. You know what I mean? When he does some of these stimulants. I have no proof of that. Maybe it's too conspiracy theory and I shouldn't go down
We do
that
have
road.
Trump here on there.
We're going to be looking at a lot of different things. And, you know, a lot of people are saying that, and a lot of people are saying that bad things are happening out there. We're going to be looking at that and plenty of other things.
Thank you.
It's Melissa's favorite cut.
It's a good one.
But, I mean, you know what he said there? He said he wants to ban all offshore drilling for oil, all offshore drilling for fossil fuels, and then says we don't need any more fossil fuels.
Oh, no future.
We don't need any more fossil fuels. Where is the moderate Biden I was promised? I was promised a moderate Biden. That's not moderate at all. It's insane. I told you yesterday, if we really wanted to solve the problem of cutting carbon emissions, it's incredibly easy. A lot of these solutions are actually really easy if you're willing to do it. If you believe climate change is a problem and we need to cut carbon emissions, the best way to do it is nuclear energy and natural gas. We've actually been doing a lot of natural gas exploration and building natural gas power plants, and it actually has cut carbon emissions by quite a bit in the United States. So that's good. We also need nuclear energy. This is all very simple, and yet their solution is just to ban all fossil fuel drilling and solar panels and wind, and that's it. That's going to be the solution.
Is that green thing, the Green Deal or whatever? Where
the Green New Deal was
stuff.
The Green New Deal was even
horse and carriage.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think they just hate civilization. like it'll never be enough.
Only for us that they hate it. When it comes to their luxuries, totally different. I'm just thinking Pelosi and hair salon. You know?
Yeah, Pelosi hair salon. Or have you ever seen Al Gore's house? Have you ever looked at Al Gore's house? It's huge, but you know he can afford the carbon offsets, what you call them. So they plant some trees.
It's an inconvenient truth
somewhere. Like I said, it's very convenient for him. It's always been a really convenient truth for him. But they say we're anti-science, but the science points to the fact that forest management has been completely mishandled in the past 3 decades, and it even got worse in the last decade. And we're seeing the problems. It's not that there are more wildfires. It's not even that there are more droughts. Those things happen in California. It's the fact that the wildfires can spread to a point where you see the devastation that you see. We're going to talk. We have a lot more to get to on the show and only one segment left.
Yeah, it goes fast, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's a good show. That's why it does. If I do say so myself.
Yeah, if it was Dragon, we would be like, it's only 7:15. Oh.
And we don't use any stimulants on this show.
No, only coffee in the morning.
I do have caffeine.
No, not me.
In my
No.
soda. That's about it. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Listen to the latest episodes of Beyond Reason. Download the podcast at Spreaker.com.
If you're attacked by a bear, a dog will throw himself.
Hey. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate that. For those of you that are hanging out with us tonight, Yaffee does this every once in a while. It's crazy, but it's true. Oh my God, who's that behind me? It's scary stuff. What? Right here.
What's up, y'all?
Dude, I thought we were being attacked, right? It's like, no, you and your leftist policies. What? No, not us. Not us, dude. All right, it's on you.
Hey, everyone. I'm glad you're listening, however many of you are actually listening or watching. But if you miss any of the show, make sure to catch the podcast and share it with your friends. I'm trying to decide what I want to talk about next. Should we get into some Florida issues next? Melissa, what do you think?
Is there anything going on in Florida that I need to know about?
Oh, there's some amendments being proposed.
Oh, yeah, that amendment. Yeah, those things. Okay, we can talk about that next.
Okay. I mean, I had a bunch of other stuff, but I think I want to get to the Florida stuff. So,
what do you guys think? Raise your hands. Oh, that's right. I can't see you.
I see them, and they all say yes. They were all raising their hands.
Fair enough. 1 minute. This is actually working out a lot easier than I thought it was gonna. I run through things in my head like how it's gonna technically work, and I was like, maybe the Q button, I'll be able to talk to them, and it won't be overpoweringly loud. And booyah, Fox.
Every day,
Let's listen to Morgan and Morgan.
and it won't cost you 1 penny.
I'm sorry. That's terrible. So how y'all doing tonight? Everybody okay? There's no basketball on, is there? You have 25 seconds. Get yourself a drink. There goes. Oh, look, there he is behind me. Oh, there he is getting his drink. What? All right, 15 seconds, and we're back. It's back in his chair. Okay. By the way, most people pay for this. I'm doing this for almost gratis. All right, and 3, 2, 1.
Oh. The place where we talk faith, culture, and politics. Beyond Reason Radio continues.
So we have to talk about something that's going on in Florida. You know, the election is beyond the presidential election, and we have amendments that are being proposed and put on the ballot, and it'll be if they're passed, it'll be amendment. I mean, they're called Amendment 2 or Amendment 4 on the ballot, but it'll be like Amendment number 550,000 on. It's actually on the Florida Constitution.
Same numbers over and over, and it's like Amendment 4 2 years ago is not the same Amendment 4.
It is a little confusing.
This year. It is very confusing.
That actually is a really good point. So the Orlando Sentinel, looking at, basically, I have 3 articles from the Orlando Sentinel. 2 I disagree with from their editorial board.
And one you're using as fish wrap?
After the show. I do like a good fish.
Sorry.
You know. Terrible at catching them. I never can seem to catch them when I go fishing.
Patience.
Yeah, I don't have that. But there's one I actually agree with. So we'll get into that. But of course, the Orlando Sentinel came out and endorsed Amendment 2 to be passed on the Florida ballot this year. Now, Amendment 2...
Is that the one where they want to pay those people who are unskilled a lot more money than I make?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
Exactly. More money than we both make, Melissa. I mean, think about that.
Don't want to. Please don't.
That's right. It says they want to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Now, of course, the article is Florida's workers deserve a better wage. They deserve it.
I feel pounding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A newspaper, not economic realities or anything like that, or your employer. No, the newspaper decided that you deserve a better wage. Now, you can make a decent argument that we need to raise the minimum wage. I think raising the minimum wage a lot of times is a disaster. Not only is it inflationary, but it's basically legislating young people out of the workforce. You're telling me that Publix is going to hire someone at $15 an hour for a 15-year-old to be a bagger at $15 an hour? No. So a lot of people that want to start at the bottom, especially if they're teenagers, are not going to be able to find jobs.
That makes sense.
It's not going to happen.
And
There's
you're
no
going
way.
to pay for it back on the other side on the retail end if they do have to, because they'll have to raise their prices. Plus,
Exactly.
a lot of people don't understand it. That's not necessarily based on a 40-hour work week.
Yeah.
So that does make a difference when you look at that $15 an hour. You're probably going to get less hours too. So
Well, that's what happened with Obamacare. When they passed Obamacare, they basically gave people less hours because they didn't want all the hassle that came with full-time employees in Obamacare.
sure.
So, I mean, it's totally same thing. I mean, just because you raise the wage, the minimum wage, doesn't mean everyone's going to just start making more money. A lot of people are going to make less money because they're going to be out of a job or they're going to be less hours, just like you said.
Exactly.
This is why legislating our wages like this, it goes against economic reality. It's not how economics works. But to me, this is even worse because this isn't even our legislators looking at the data and saying we need to raise the minimum wage. This is actually people just voting for higher pay. So it's not like they're trying to get higher pay at their business and they're talking to their boss. It's not even that they're starting a union and trying to collectively bargain. This is literally people out there that, are like, I want to get paid more, and you put it on the ballot, and we're going to vote.
I was
our wages.
actually polled about this. You know how I usually say I'm never surveyed?
Yeah.
I actually forced myself on a survey taker in front of the DMV. By the way, survey taker in Florida, actually a California resident paid to be here to take surveys about $15 minimum wage. Yeah, it's a whole scam. Think about that, people. Just do the math for a second. Somebody came all the way here from California to get paid to do surveys about getting a $15 minimum wage on our ballots.
Yeah, I mean, who is not going to vote themselves more money?
Okay,
I mean,
I'll have a raise.
Oh, why don't we just make an amendment? Here's the next amendment being proposed, Amendment 52, I'm going to call it.
Sure.
That everyone gets $1,000 check in their mailbox once a month. How about we just have that on the amendment?
That's the Anthony Yang or Andrew Yang thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, pretty
Yang?
much. I mean, maybe, I'm kind of using this as a ridiculous argument, but it actually, maybe it's realistic. It's actually something that could possibly happen. I mean, this is what happens when you decide that you want to vote on your wage. That's probably the biggest problem I have with it. And people are like, well, yeah, but most people in Florida don't make minimum wage. But there are a lot of people that might make over the current minimum wage, but make under $15 an hour. And they're going to see on the ballot, oh, hey, maybe if I just vote for this, I'll get more money.
That's not going to happen. No.
No, it goes totally against economics.
I think people should be paid on their worth, their merit, and the performance. But that's just me. I've always been that way. And I've been a manager.
No,
I've been an
don't be
owner.
silly.
I've been an employer. And, yeah, I've actually paid people according to their worth. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, but this is what you would expect of the Orlando Sun. The other one I disagree with is they have an article here. It says, a solution to Florida's economic misery. End corporate welfare. Now, when I first saw the title of the article, I thought, oh, well, I agree with that. I'm not a big fan of corporate welfare. But that's not what it's talking about. It's not talking about, like, handing out cash to a bunch of companies so they can come here, like building a bridge for Universal or something. That was something I was against, where they were going to use taxpayer dollars to build this bridge for Universal Orlando when Universal Orlando could fund that themselves. So, I mean, I'm totally against that kind of corporate welfare, but that's not what they're talking about here. They're talking about the low taxes, of course. And the biggest problem I have with this argument is lowering someone's taxes is not welfare. You always hear this, well, they're subsidized or they're getting corporate welfare. No, you're just allowing them to keep more of their own money. When a business makes money and you tax them less, it's their money that they made, that they helped create, that they produced,
put back into the community.
Exactly.
Oh.
It's not welfare.
No.
Welfare is when you just hand them
Here you
money
go.
that they have not made. That's not what this is doing. They have the money. They made the money. They're just able to keep more of it.
You mean like the money that Obama gave for the solar panels, and then that company went kaflooey upside? Oh.
Yeah, that's a subsidy.
Okay.
You have subsidies.
Just checking.
Subsidies are out there, and I'm against a lot of these subsidies. I hate the fact that the city had to put in millions of dollars to build the Amway Center. Why? That's not the role of the local government. That's corporate welfare right there, helping the magic or whatever. I'm against that kind of stuff. But this whole idea that allowing a company to keep more of their own money by not charging them as much tax, that's not welfare. That's
Y'all got that confused.
Yeah, that's just economics, supply side economics. But I will say this. I do agree with Scott Maxwell in the Orlando Sentinel for once, which I usually don't.
I usually know.
I sort of agree with him.
Mm.
He has an article about how Vegas has decided to use their hotel taxes, their hotel tax revenue, for a rail system. Now, he believes that they should do that in Orlando, that Orlando should use hotel taxes and the tourist tax to build some kind of rail system because of the traffic problem here. Now, I think a rail system is completely overrated, honestly. I have always thought that. Like, Sunrail is the most overrated thing I've ever seen in my life. It probably helps some people, but to act like that's some kind of big boon to help alleviate the traffic in Orlando is ridiculous.
They say
it's a waste of money.
The rest of the hotel, I mean, these tourist taxes are like, oh, we're going to use it over here, we're going to do it over here, and the hotels are like just bumping and bumping and bumping up and up. Come on.
Well, I mean, you could argue that we should just get rid of the tax or whatever, but the problem is right now the tourist tax has to go into tourism projects, has to go into these things like the convention center or Visit Orlando or stuff like that. And I've been totally against that. I agree with Scott Maxwell that if the city is benefiting from its tourism and getting tax revenue from it, shouldn't the city be able to use it for more things than tourist attractions?
I'd say work on the roads with that money.
Yeah,
but yeah,
work
you're,
on
you're
the
right.
roads.
You're right about
work
that.
on the roads, lower the expressway rates.
It was only supposed to be temporary.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. Or other type things that are really needed for police, more for firefighters,
Right, so
more
I'm
for
with you on
teachers.
that makes sense, but putting it into a rail system to alleviate traffic problems, which Orlando downtown are we talking about? The iDrive one that we don't go to?
A rail system will never work in this city until it goes to the theme parks and the airport. If it doesn't go to the theme parks and doesn't go to the airport, I could care less about it, to be perfectly honest with you. But I agree, the tax dollars should be able to be used for other things as well. Wow, that show went really fast.
Yeah.
Holy cow. If you missed any of the show, you can catch the podcast anywhere the podcasts are available. You can like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page. Follow me on Twitter at Michael Yaffee. Thanks to Melissa Fox for producing as well, and I'll catch you guys next time.
When you're stressed, you just don't feel like yourself. New Natrol Relaxia.
See you later.
Anxiety.